Almost anytime I watch a Pantheon Rise of the Fallen stream on Twitch, one of the frequent comments I see from newcomers is about how the combat looks a little boring, and for years the developers have said that this is just the foundation of the system, and once that's solid and balanced, they'll be adding more layers of mechanics to make it more engaging and dynamic. Well, in their most recent stream with Courtroul, it seems like they've finally gotten to a point where they can start doing just that. So, let's take a look.
This is BazgrimTV. Learn, laugh, level up.
If you want to always stay up to date with the development of Pantheon, hit the subscribe button now if you haven't already, because this channel is completely dedicated to that. I'm not one of the developers, I'm just a guy who spends a lot of time gathering information from the Visionary Realms team so that I can pass it along to you in a way that's just quicker and easier for you to understand. So with that in mind, let's get right into it. This time, the devs brought Courtroul along for an adventure in the zone of Amberfaet, and that's really interesting because the first time the team ever did a stream with him was almost exactly 3 years ago, and that was also the first and only time that Amberfaet has been shown. And since then, of course, there's been quite a few improvements to the zone, which is significant because it's proof that Project Fairthill is not just about Fairthill as a single zone. The improvements that are included in the overall Project Fairthill milestone really affect the whole game, and you can see that here. And if you haven't heard about Project Fairthill before and you want to learn more, I'll include a link to it. But today I'm just going to summarize what's new, what we learned, and what's never been seen before. So if you're brand new to Pantheon, I'd really encourage you to check out this introductory playlist I made to get you up to speed so that you have a better context of what's going on. But for now, let's jump right into the updates. Within just the first minute of the stream, Co stumbled upon the new and improved perception system, which is very appropriate because that's a system that allows players to discover the lore of the world organically without handholding. A few weeks ago, the developers gave a preview of an update they'd been working on for the perception system, but now we actually got to see it in-game. Here, Co noticed this orb just in the environment that was interactable, and when he clicked on it, it gave this little teaser, if you will. And similarly, when he approached this other orb laying on the ground, it automatically gave this pop-up, which gave an additional hint about what was going on. These pings were triggered by the Investigate and Insight skills, respectively. Investigate being a skill that you activate, and Insight being a passive skill. And as you can see, through the perception system, he felt compelled to explore and find out more about what these orbs were. Maybe it would lead to a quest, maybe it was just for flavor. Either way, it was almost like the world itself was the dungeon master of a tabletop session, just giving you clues about what was going on around. The next big improvement we saw was the climbing system. Now, Amberfaet is an extremely vertical zone, and while climbing will be an important aspect of exploring in almost any zone, Amberfaet was perfect for showing it off. In fact, back in that 2016 stream, we first saw a very early version of the climbing system, and then in 2018 they gave a brief demo of how it was being updated as part of Project Fairthill. But again, this is the first time that we saw it in-game. These are all new animations made in-house by Ross Armstrong, and even though it's still a work in progress, you can see it's come a long way. The devs talked about how most surfaces in the game will be climbable if your climbing skill is high enough. They want you to be able to feel like you can explore almost anywhere that you can see, and climbing will even sometimes play a part in combat. And speaking of combat, that was really the thing that everybody wanted to see. And the devs said that they want to make a point of just showing how fun it can be to simply go on an adventure with a group. And I think they accomplished that. Right off the bat, you can see that a lot of the animations have improved, which is another one of those things that they've always said was coming for sure, but it's really always good to see that progress in-game. The group they had was level 40, and their composition had Kyle Olsen, the lead programmer, making his Twitch stream debut as an ogre shaman, joined by Joppa the human rogue, Ronik the human wizard, Brass the dwarf cleric, Mikhail the dwarf paladin, and Courtroul playing a human warrior. In a recent video newsletter, the devs first unveiled the new class resource system, which are the unique resources that some classes have, in addition to the typical health, endurance, etc., that they need to manage to perform their more powerful abilities. And actually seeing this in action from the warrior's perspective was really the centerpiece of this stream. The warrior actually has 2 unique resources, and I'll just let creative director Chris Joppa-Perkins explain how they work.
You see the row of shields. This is the battle point system where warriors can, it's a very simple build and spend mechanic. You're going to build battle points by using certain abilities, and then you have other abilities you can spend battle points on. But on the right-hand side, you see the resilience, and this is really purely a mitigation-based resource where your overall armor class, which includes your worn items, any buffs you have on at the time, those are going to play into the amount of resilience that you have on the wall. And every time you take damage, it's going to go through that resilience layer, and however much resilience you have is going to determine how much damage is absorbed before it actually hits the rest of your mitigation. Now, the cool thing about it is, as you are fighting and tanking, your shield block ability actually is going to help you generate resilience. So that's kind of the way you heal your own resilience in battle, is by using shield block and timing your shield block to where it's going to maximize how much damage you take, so that not only are you reducing the amount of damage through shield block itself, but then it's going to help you generate that much more resilience.
Okay, so my shield block is only, it's an instant cast with a 2-second. So I'm clicking that, and then any attacks that hit me for 2 seconds will then generate more hate on that target.
It'll generate more hate. It's going to reduce the damage by 60% while shield block's active. And then a percentage of the damage you absorb is going to directly regenerate your resilience pool. And then the higher resilience you have, the more damage you're going to absorb. So you're trying to time that shield block to make sure that you're using it when the highest amount of damage is coming in.
Again, the idea here is to make combat more dynamic and engaging, and I think the warrior is a perfect example of this, because in most MMOs, warriors are pretty straightforward. You hit taunt and then you try to absorb as much damage as you can. And that's fine, but sometimes that can get pretty boring after a while. So now with Pantheon, it's more exciting because you have more to do, more options to consider, and it really allows the skilled players to shine. It's a more tactical style of combat rather than totally auto-attack based or totally reaction based. And in combat, our group of fearless heroes encountered some enemies with dispositions, which is the system that causes some NPCs to randomly spawn with certain traits, behavior patterns, and personalities that just shake things up and require you to figure out what they're doing, why they're doing it, and then how you can counter it. There are dozens of different dispositions that could spawn, so each time you go into a dungeon, your experience is going to be a little more unpredictable. Now, for example, this time, the group happened to run into some mobs with the bloodthirsty disposition, which has a chance to cause bleeding with every attack it does, and if it's successful, it gains a buff called Blood Frenzy, which then allows it to deal even more damage. So, when this sort of thing happens, you're probably going to have to adjust your strategies accordingly. And then lastly, I just wanted to point out this little part of their adventure. These aren't quest NPCs or anything, it may not seem like much at first, but these simple safe spaces built into massive dungeons are just one little example of the many ways that they're working to make it so that you don't need to dedicate 4, 5, 6+ hours to be able to accomplish something meaningful in an open world MMO. This way, you and your group have a place where you can just log out for the night and then pick it up another time. So that way, session by session, even if you only play for a couple hours, you can still make your way through this dungeon if that's how you prefer to play. And there'll be other systems in place to help with this too, but that's another video for another day. So with that, you should be all caught up on the news from the latest Pantheon Rise of the Fallen gameplay stream. If this has gotten you excited and you want to watch the whole stream, the link is in the description. I, for one, am going to keep rewatching it and breaking it down even more so that I can share my findings with you. So, I'll see you in the next video.